Item B, presentation of Daybreak Foods on the development proposal. Rick, you need any assistance here?
I'm not sure. I didn't know you would have a projector, so.
Well, we really don't. It's
Kind of a
not
joke.
really working.
What's that?
It's not really
Our
working.
projector is kind of a joke. Would it help if we turn the projector off? You have,
Cover it.
Just so, because I'll put some little storyboards up here and I think it'll be
Okay.
easier to see.
and then I'd ask that you
Switch there behind you.
introduce yourselves and your team, and we'll go from there.
So, Fred and Cindy, I imagine you didn't think all these people cared that much about your retaining wall. Now I don't. But while they're here, we'll give a presentation anyway. So my name is Rick Radel, and I'm with Daybreak Foods. I'm the capital projects manager for Daybreak Foods. I've held different capacities at Daybreak for about 26 years. And I've got with me this evening Keith Kuhl. He's our regional operations manager for Daybreak Foods. Keith is responsible for basically all of Wisconsin operations, both the Creekwood facility that we're here to talk about tonight, and what we call LMC, which is kind of on the county line between Jefferson and Dane County, just north of Highway B. And so Keith is with me. Also this evening I have Bob Pofel. He's with REA Engineering, and he's our team leader for our site engineering for this project. And I want to thank the board for letting us come this evening and take a few minutes to talk about an upcoming project. I'm going to start by apologizing a little bit, only because we wish we could have come to you sooner to give this presentation. And I say that because in the planning process for this, you know, things kind of continuously change and get upgraded. And we want to come with the most factual information that we can give you. But in that process, you know, it kind of gets slowed down. And in the world that we're going down with what we're calling cage-free in a new facility, that technology is almost changing about every 2 or 3 months. And so in the process of picking, we had to start by picking what type of aviary equipment we would want to start with in a new facility, and that took us close to a year to get to that point. And in that process, the options continued to change throughout that year. So it really slowed our process down. But for us, we're a pretty excited group here because we get to make some pretty appreciable changes to a site that has needed it for some time. Daybreak Foods bought the site in 2008, and Daybreak has really grown mostly through the acquisition of sites. We have facilities, I'll say, on the west coast of Iowa to the east coast of Ohio, and most of those sites we have acquired through purchasing. And then typically what we'll do is we'll purchase them, upgrade them, change them for whatever our customers are asking us to do. When it comes to Creekwood, in 2008 we bought it. We immediately made some upgrades at the site. We changed it from what was a shell egg grading plant, say, if you're going to buy eggs in a store, to a liquid plant, which is the vast majority of all the product we produce is liquid product. And that's strictly because of what our customers are asking us to produce. So, not too long ago, we were asked to start looking at cage-free as an option. Now, I want to make sure people understand the difference between cage-free and what might be considered free-range. So, there's not a lot of chickens running around on the grass. They're in a building, but they're able to basically move around inside the building. So, we had options, and looking at various sites where we could start this process and do some converting to what is conventional hen raising to the cage-free system. And we decided that the best place we could start is in our own backyard, which is here in Lake Mills. For our corporate offices, we have a great group of stakeholders here, and quite honestly, we have a facility that's really in need of some upgrade. I want to take any misnomers out of the air right away. We're not going to just remodel what's there. What is there will not be there anymore, and it will be considerably different, and I'm here tonight to tell you about what that is. Operationally, I have Keith here, and if there's some questions that we can answer tonight, we certainly will. And relative to any engineering questions, I have Bob with us. But our objective tonight is to bring you up to speed. This will not be the first time we approach this group, I'm sure, and the last time, but we will also be approaching the county. We will have public hearings through the DNR, so there will be lots of opportunities to ask questions along the way. We want to be a good neighbor. We want to be a good part of the community. We know and we acknowledge in the past there's been challenges. We inherited a lot of those challenges, and it took a long time to fix them. I think we've come a long way. We're not done. To get to the point where we feel we need to be, and where I'm sure where you would want us to be, we have to make some serious changes. This new opportunity for us is kind of the perfect marriage of that. So I'm going to basically start by talking a little bit about what well, let me tell you, I guess, first about the process. So we looked at, could we just take the current Creekwood site as it stands right now and make changes to that site? We have contractual agreements with our customer, so volume that goes to the customer has to stay consistent, all right? So for us to just say, like, remove buildings and put new buildings up, remove buildings and put new buildings up, really won't work. Because every time we take a building down, we're going to drop volume. And we can't drop the volume because we have agreements that says we have to keep a certain amount of product flowing to the customer. So then we looked at, is there enough acreage that we currently own on the site to be able to do some additions and do the same thing? The answer is no. It's no for a couple of reasons. One, just don't have enough acreage. Number two, the setback requirements, that the county imposes both for just building or for, say, any kind of manure building or any kind of agriculture building with livestock in it. We have to meet those setback requirements. And that just kind of starts to squeeze you in so that now the property that we have that doesn't have anything on it at the site right now at Creekwood just really won't work. So plan B was, let's see if we could acquire some property, which we did. Across the street, we bought a farm, closed on it about, I'll say, 3 to 4 weeks ago. And we have, once we knew that we were probably going to be able to purchase a farm, we started planning using that acreage and then also doing some changes to what's already on the existing Creekwood site. Like I said earlier, what you see on the Creekwood site today won't be there anymore. So I'm going to start by showing you an artist rendering of what the new layer buildings will look like. Now, I want to mention that you're going to see a few different things tonight. You're going to see what are considered layer buildings, and that's for the cage-free layers. When you have cage-free layers, you also then have to raise birds in pullet buildings that are being raised for a cage-free environment. If I take a bird that's in a conventional environment and try to put it into a cage-free building, it won't know what to do. It's used to being like in a little cage, and its feed right there, its water's just to the right, and it knows the 5 other young women with it, okay? So to make this work, we actually have to put up new pullet buildings also, that's what they're called. So we would also put up some pullet buildings that would be raising the birds to go into these cage-free layer buildings, okay? So,
Can I get you to back up just
oh, yeah, I apologize. I was doing that earlier because of the blinding light,
Yep.
Good. Okay, so now, can you see that? So, let me go like that. Is it high enough? Otherwise, maybe
Maybe you could snap it on
yeah,
that.
let me see if I can show. Otherwise, raising problems, I'll probably hurt myself.
See, I don't raise it.
There we go. Okay. Thanks. So, the first thing that most people say when they see this, they're like, those are chicken barns? Someone said that they look more like a horse farm in Kentucky. I like to think of them as cage-free horse farms. So, this is what the facility would look like. This is Crossman Road. Okay, so this is on the new site that we just purchased. It's basically right across the street from the Creekwood site. To give you a little bit of explanation, and I'm going to emphasize little, because we'll be happy to give more detail as we go. Tonight is just kind of a primer to get some knowledge out there to you, hopefully to dispel any rumors, and to answer a few questions as we go. So these buildings here, each one is a layer building that has 2 flocks in it, okay? So there'll be a flock on the left side of this building, another flock on the right side. There's 4 levels of birds inside the building. This side of the building will hold 200,000 birds. So if you do that math, 5 buildings, 2 million chickens will be on the site. Those will be the layers, okay? The manure from 2 million layers works like this. 2 things happen. Inside these buildings, where the birds are able to kind of like go where they want on the level that they're in, at night they go into their cages. They actually have like a little area with perches. During the day, they go into an area where they lay their eggs. They have nesting areas. Okay? The manure that comes from those birds will actually go into the center area in the building, which is what we call an MDS, a manure drying system. And it's actually a serpentine system where the manure will be dried down inside the building and then go mechanically out to a storage building back behind here. At that point, it's down to about 20% moisture. When a bird poops, for lack of a better term, it's about 70%. So it basically has removed, about 80% of the moisture that was originally in the manure. So it's very dry. The other thing we're doing that most companies don't do is inside the aviary system are blowers that also blow. When the bird poops, it poops on a belt. We dry that on the belt as well. So we're actually drying it twice. Nobody in the industry is doing that. We're doing that here because we think it's necessary to get to the level that everyone can live with, which is essentially close to no order. I am never going to say no order, but you can't get any better. In fact, there are companies that are doing this in Europe that actually turn some of the dryers off because it gets so dry. And once you dry it, the ammonia is released, or no ammonia was produced anyways, and so you have a very nice product. Very saleable product, by the way. So we have 5 buildings here with 2 million birds. This would be a flock. This is another flock. Here's a flock. Here's a flock. So there'd be 10 total flocks on the site. We would have a processing plant, a new processing plant. Down here on the site, which you'll see, this is kind of like a first rendition. There'll also be a little biosecurity building for stakeholders to come in and out. But this is kind of an essential drawing that's important because all of these trees and that kind of thing, they will actually be planted there. We look at that as kind of like a good biosecurity for us because it's natural air filtration. These buildings are what are called tunnel ventilated buildings. And this is very important. The air that comes into these buildings will actually come in the front end of the building. It will exhaust out the back. At the back, we are putting dust collection chambers so that dust that comes out of the building does not leave the site. As the manager of this project, the president of our company said to me, "Rick, no dust leaves the site." I said, "What?" "No dust leaves the site." He said, "I want a dust-free site." So we've been painstakingly working through that process because to move the amount of air that you need to keep the birds healthy and comfortable in a cage-free environment, we're going to push a lot of air through the building. So we have built containment areas that actually fall between the back of this building and before you get to that manure storage area that will contain all of that. I wish today I could give you that detail. We have it, but it's pretty extensive. But this is kind of where everything starts. By the way, the color renditions on here is exactly what we're going to build. We've told our contractors there will be no wood in these buildings, by the way. We've asked for superior finishes. These will have standing seam metal roofs. The cupolas on the building are for a visual expression of the building. We're going to be very proud of this site. Yes.
What's the footprint of that entire building?
Of like one of these buildings,
Yeah.
120 feet wide by 500 feet long.
And there's going to be how many buildings?
5.
5 buildings.
Okay, just like you see.
Okay.
Rick? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
How tall is the building gonna be?
The sidewall on the building is 40 feet.
Yeah, so, and one more question, that picture that you saw, is that looking southeast then?
Yeah, that's a great question. Keith, I'm gonna let you answer that.
That would be southeast.
Yeah, southeast.
I mean, then what's gonna have the buildings that are on the current side then?
Okay, the what?
There's a house and barn shed.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay, so we'll talk about that. That's a great question.
Did you say 40 feet high?
40 feet.
Sidewalk?
40 foot sidewall by 120 feet wide.
I wanted to ask you too, Rick, how many birds are you currently permitted? How many birds do you have out there currently?
We're permitted for 1.8 currently.
You're permitted
that
for
site?
1.8 million, and you're gonna add 2 million, so that would
No,
put
And we're gonna have
2.8.
200,000.
Pardon me?
We're gonna go to 2 million. We're not adding 2
2
million.
million.
So you gotta remember, what's there now goes away.
Yeah, but if you already have a permit, you're not gonna give up your permit, I don't think.
But we convert that permit just over to the new,
Yeah,
right.
so you have a permit for 1.8 million, and you're gonna get to 2 million.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
it's not 2 million new birds,
Correct.
besides the
Correct.
1.8.
Correct, exactly right. Yep.
What's driving cage free anyway?
Okay, we ask ourselves that every day. So, and the question was, what's driving cage-free? It's really consumer demand, and consumer demand turns from customer demand. Now, there's all kinds of customers out there in the world. There are customers that want cage-free. There are customers that want free range. We look to our customer and say, what do you need? And they tell us what they need. They're looking for us to put on board in total for them over 4 million birds. We're only doing 2 million here. But, so they're looking for a lot of cage-free product to meet their customer demand.
Who's there?
So that's
Who's there?
I can't speak to
Okay,
that.
because it was in the State Journal, though, Rick, about that McDonald's, who's one of your breeding customers, said that their producers, or whoever they bought from, had to go to these free range or cage-free or whatever. I mean, that was in the State Journal, so.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to that.
So, it's
All
really
I
not-
know is what drives what we do. If we didn't have a customer that would want this, we certainly wouldn't do it.
No.
I mean, it's not something you do. There are actually companies that have gone out there and kind of literally stuck their neck out to do some cage-free, and they're finding they don't have a market for it. That's not the way Daybreak operates. If the customer isn't there for it and has agreed to it, we wouldn't build it. And it's very long-term. So, I'm good, I'm sorry. Yes.
Sorry, just quickly, so when you transition to these 2 million new birds, what do you do with the 1.8 million birds that aren't adaptable?
I'll get to that. Okay, yeah, you're getting ahead of me, but you're thinking right. Okay, can you see this okay? Maybe I can put it on the upper level there.
I just want to take a close look at it. Because my place, obviously, where my place. Right here, that's my place.
Okay.
Then we take all the curtain ones down, then we make the land, I think.
Well, tell you what, let me go. Let me grab the other one.
Up is north.
I assume right there next door to me, the house you bought.
Yeah, so let me answer some of those questions. Okay, so what I have here is a site map that shows the current Creekwood site, which is what you're going to see right here. And this is the new property that we bought right here. Okay? This is Crossman Road. This is Highway A. Just kind of give everybody some perspective where we are. Okay? Right now, on this site, It's nothing but field. There is a farmhouse. There's a beautiful red barn. There is a shed right about here. And I think there's a little like chicken coop in the back. Okay? All right. So this would be the site. There's about 79 acres here. We would build on the front, I'll call it the front 40. Right? Here's those 5 buildings that I have in the picture. Okay? This area here is paved driveway. For the only thing it's used for is actually to move birds in and out. Okay. This is the manure storage area in the back here. This is the processing plant. I mentioned that we would have a biosecurity building for people coming in and out of the buildings. That's what this is right here. That's for the stakeholders that go inside. Okay? So this is what the layer site would look like. This is the current Creekwood site. There are 9 buildings. All right? All of these 9 buildings will go away. Okay? There are 3 manure buildings. At least 2 of those will go away. 1 will be remodeled for storage, just for machine storage, equipment storage, that kind of thing, and probably reduced to about half its size. If we have one that's in pretty good shape, we're going to clean it up and remodel it for a nice building. Continuing on the site, so all of this will go away. We have a feed mill that's there currently. That feed mill will come down. There's some grain storage on that site, a couple bins. We're going to keep the bins that are still good for corn storage. Over here is the wastewater lagoon for the processing plant. There's multi-cells for that. We're going to add 1 more cell. If we're going to, right now, how many birds do you have on the site?
900. Potentially up to 900,000.
About 900,000. So we're doubling the amount of eggs that we're going to break through that processing plant. So we need to expand the lagoon system for the wastewater. We have area for that. That's already been plotted out. And that's what you see there. And then I mentioned that we needed 3 barns for pullets to raise the young birds. And they're literally raised from 1 day up to 18 weeks until they're moved to the layer barn. And that's what these 3 buildings are right here. 3 pull barns. Okay? We would also construct a new feed mill. Okay? The feed mill that Keith has out at Creekwood is old and tired and has gone through a few durations of change and improvement, but it's just tired out like the rest of the facility. So that would go away. A new feed mill would be built right here. Okay? And that feed mill would support the layers, the pullets, and also the birds that we have out at the other, what we call the LMC site over on Highway Hole. Okay, that's a lot to digest. Any questions? Yes.
Isn't there other facilities out there that are leased out to other companies for other products?
Ask that again, I'm just not quite sure I'm understanding the question.
Is there other facilities that are currently at the Creekwood site that are being leased out to other companies for other products?
No, there is not. There is a dog food operation right here. I believe it's like a dog food operation, Keith, is that what that is? But that's not ours. That's not even our property. That's just a separate company.
And that would remain where it is?
That would remain there, yeah, exactly. We're not doing anything with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Are there long-term redevelopment plans for where your current buildings are, or is that just bulldozed and pasture?
You're good. So, that's why I got ahead of myself. So, this is what the site would look like. So this is what the site would look like when we're done. So what you see is all these buildings that are here now are gone. Remember I told you we would take one of the existing buildings and make it about half? That's what that is right there. Okay? The only thing that would be left on that site that we would still use, there is 1 pullet barn for raising conventional pullets. It's actually a rather new barn. We're going to continue to operate that, and we're going to upgrade it so it has the same manure drying capabilities inside the system. And we're going to continue to raise conventional pullets, conventional birds for other sites of ours, like LMC or even out of the state, wherever we might need them. So that one will continue to run. So we end up with a total of 4 pullet buildings, the existing one here. There's actually 2 existing pole buildings right here that they're covered up here because they're going away to build the 3 new ones. This building that you see right here, that is a new manure building for the poles. And everything for the manure is handled inside. So off to the side of these buildings, there'll actually be a drive-through where a truck goes in, door is shut, they load the manure, they pull the tarp over, they take it over to this building. It's actually got a drive-through, they drive inside, empty it, and go do it again. Everything's inside. And that's the same case over here, of course, because everything will be conveyed inside. That's all done by conveyor. And everything is handled inside. And these will get emptied as needed by trucks. Semi-trucks literally will pull in the building, they'll get loaded, they'll get tarped, and pull out.
Can you expand a little bit on the wastewater system and the expansion of that?
Yeah, I'll do my best on that. So, right now, what we do is the washing of eggs and the food processing that goes on with liquid egg product, is what it's called, requires, I'd be hard pressed to tell you the exact number of gallons per day kind of thing. But at the end of the day, right now, the wastewater from the current plant, which is situated right about here, pumps that wastewater down to these lagoons, right? What we're going to propose to you, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more, is we would propose that this processing plant, we would do what's called a force main and push that water back over. We'd like to reuse these because they're actually working quite well now, and it would be a shame not to use them. We'd rather not disrupt this property back here if we can help it. We just would rather not. It's nice property, we've got good neighbors back there, we'd like to keep it pristine. And so rather than do that, we would like to use this again. And it would be, we would then haul off that wastewater like we do now to be land applied. And we have a regular permit for doing that. So.
Couple questions, Rick.
Yes.
Right east of the digester, what is that driveway or what is that?
This right here.
Exactly, Yep,
That's a gravel area that's there already,
right. Okay.
so we just didn't cover that up, but we need to get to the side of that because there's a manhole there and things
Sure,
like that.
right, yeah.
So just access to that part of the
Okay.
existing system.
The other thing you had said that the mill was going to be removed, but the grain storage would stay.
Right.
So that's not on there?
Well, I'll tell you what, yeah, you're asking a good question. And the guys that did this, some people in his office, we were like, okay, we need this taken out, and they did their best. But there are a couple large grading beds that will stay there, yes.
Then what happens with the rest of the processing plant and
Yeah,
the shop that's there?
so that's a good question. So he's talking about right up here. We're debating what we're gonna do with that. The building, in fact, Keith and I were talking about it this evening. The roof on that building is in pretty tough shape. It's a nice building. It looks nice out there. It's been kept up very well. I'm not quite sure what purpose it would serve for us yet. So we're just kind of batting that around. We hate to take it off the map yet because it's just a nice structure.
Same with the shop. That was just rebuilt 5-6 years ago.
Timetable on as you put up and take down?
Yeah, so let me go through a little bit of that for you. I want to tell you where we're at with the permitting process, which goes through the DNR and goes through the county and then goes through this board. Okay, so we have submitted and got approved our what's called an NOI, and that basically is a notice of intent, and that's done for stormwater control. So when we lay out a site like this, we have to be responsible how all the water flow will fall off the site, okay? We also, in that process, have to do a couple things. We have to do wetland delineations, okay? So there are some wetlands in this area. And the DNR basically points those out on a map, and then we hire an engineer to go out and confirm, are these wetlands? We've gone through that process. They're part of the NOI, okay? The other thing is cultural and historical. We have to make sure there aren't any artifacts, Indian artifacts, or whatever that might be on the site. We actually had some concern that there may have been some right about here, okay? So we had to hire an archaeologist to come out. Back in 1979, there was a gal from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee that had determined that there was some possible archaeological sighting in this whole area, even over here. And so a couple spots were pointed out. One spot could have been right here. They went out, they checked it, they dug, and determined there wasn't anything. But that's, and then the DNR has to approve that archaeological find from their onboard archaeologist, which has been done, and so the NOI was approved. Okay, so that's where we're at with that stuff. We have also, because this is like a linear path, we have also submitted plans, and they've been deemed complete for this manure storage building and this waste storage building, these two, okay? Because we have to submit structural plans for those, because they're gonna hold manure. They can't leak, they gotta stay dry, they gotta, do a good job of containment, okay? There are very tight restrictions on that. We've had multiple engineering teams working on that between Bob's team and our general contracting team in Des Moines, Iowa. Yeah. So those are in and are now are in the approval process. It's like a maximum 90-day process kind of thing. The thing that we're doing right now is, number one, we're speaking to you. Number two, we're preparing to meet with the siting committee for Jefferson County, because that'll be the next step. And then, by the way, that committee will be looking to see how you feel about it as a board. Okay? So that will be the next stages. But like I said, it's somewhat linear. We can't come to the siting committee until we have approval of our manure storage buildings. Okay? So everything kind of has to happen in a line. Okay? Now, getting to the punchline. So when do we want to start construction? Spring of next year. That's when we would like to break ground. More than likely, we would start breaking ground in this area because we need to put up public buildings first. What happens is, in this construction process, as you can probably imagine, as you start getting your layer buildings built, you want to start putting birds into those buildings to use those assets. Okay? To do that, we have to have the young birds grown to do that. So we have to start with getting some public buildings started. That would be probably the first place we start. This whole process will take about 2.5 years. Okay? You can see it's a large process. These buildings that are current, what we will do is, as layers are placed into these new buildings, we will stop populating the existing buildings. When they're done being unpopulated, we'll take them down. And that's actually part of the whole removal process as part of our permitting.
Is that one by one, or is that the whole facility?
I'll tell you what, that's a great question. I'd like to do them one by one. I don't know if that's the most prudent thing to do, okay? So more to come on that question, and we'll define that as we go. We have set some Gantt charts and timeline tables up for this whole project, and it basically puts us out to the fall of 2020. By that point in time, this is what you would see. Okay. Now, I want to caution you, don't take my word for everything I'm saying tonight. Because I can tell you, probably 6 times yesterday afternoon, I made plan changes to these buildings. Okay? That's just how the process goes. I didn't make the buildings longer, I didn't make them wider, but I added a little room here, and I changed this, and I changed that. What you see here is what you're going to get. But the detail, which a lot of people like to see, if I gave you the detail today, it might change a little bit tomorrow. We will get to a point that it won't change anymore. Okay? For the siting process, once we say a building is going to start here and end here, that cannot change. That will be set in stone. So that's why we're doing all of our work now. So when we get to that point, we are committed. And then you'll hear more. I'm going to tell you, I'm a firm believer that in the absence of fact, people create their own. It just happens. Okay? I've heard people say, oh, you're building 2 buildings. Oh, you're going to go 5 million birds, 6 million birds. I've heard all kinds of things. Okay? Keith and I will give you the facts as we know them. Okay? If we leave out detail, we just may not be sure of the detail. But we want to be very transparent. We are here for the long term. We are here as your neighbors. we've got great stakeholders on our site. I'd like to think we, provide a lot of income to the township and to the county. We want to continue to do that. And, we just recently had a family loss. One of the people that was hurt in that farm accident, Brian, had worked for us for 36 years. Okay? So he won't get to see this. We're actually going to be devoting one of our buildings to him. We'll have a plaque on it. And it was a sad day for us. But we have such a good story to tell. Lots of woes that we're trying to overcome. We get it. But what we're going to do here is really going to change us. And we'll make you proud.
Rick, just to clarify, because I think you made it pretty clear, you have 1.8 million birds, and you're planning to go to 2 million. So you're really asking for a couple 100,000 new birds.
Correct.
You want a permit that will take it about 200,000 more birds, is that right?
No, actually, we would be asking for, we're gonna take just layers right now. So if we have 1.8, we'll take the layers to 2 million.
Okay,
So we would add the 750 plus the difference of the 1.8 to 2 million. Or 750,000.
so there'll be an additional 750 besides the 2 million? The top line is 2 million birds out there, whether they're bullets or layers.
Right, so the current permit is 1.8 million.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna go from 1.8 to 2.7.
Oh, 2.7.
2.7.
Now that includes the poll.
That's
okay, I'm just
right.
asking.
That includes the double. Right. Yes.
And then, well, what you're really saying is that this company is growing.
Yes.
The value of this company is really growing over the past few years.
Rick, I'm not sure if you mentioned it. I was listening, but I wasn't. All this is hard surfaced. So if you drive by today, you see dust bowl with trucks pulling in and out of there. You're not going to see that here. It's all going to be hard surfaced.
Yes, that's a very good
All the driveways, everything's hard surfaced, all directional, water directional. So we're not going to have that current dust bowl that we have today. Right? Yes.
Well, when they get that done, they'll have to probably upgrade widen up crossing a little bit, wouldn't they? First to allow so many trucks to by here.
I'm not sure. I think Crossman's wide enough to handle that. It currently does.
Oh yeah, but about the 4 layers, how high would each layer be? Like 8 feet or
Yes.
40 feet
about
tall.
tall as
Well,
the ceiling?
it's close, yes.
Where do your trucks go now, Keith? To take the liquidated stuff away? What roads do they use?
Crossman.
Okay. And then where
They
do-
currently turn on Crossman.
Okay. Because from that one, they go past B, they go on B, which is a heavily
Yeah, that's
traveled road.
LMC, yep.
Traveled road already, so I'm just curious if you added more layers.
No, those primarily go to the other location.
I'm going to
Say
take
fellas,
this down because I've got
just
one
so I
more.
understand, you got 1.8 million birds on site right now.
No, we don't. We have 1 million.
Okay,
We've
but
never reached-
your permit is for 1.8.
Correct. We've
Oh,
never
okay.
reached capacity of the current permit.
Okay, but you're permitting though, you're gonna raise that to 2.7.
Correct.
They don't use that.
Is that the final footprint then, or could you expand further than that?
No, that would be it. We actually, as a company, we don't want to put more than that many birds on one site for biosecurity reasons.
Mhm.
Who owns that company now? Who owns it?
Owns
Who owns Daybreak Foods now?
the green family.
You talk about the owner, though, Green
Yes,
still
yeah,
owns it.
Yes.
It's still a family company.
So I think the $1 million question for me is, what will the odor coefficient be in 2020 versus 2017? If I'm sitting at Bartles Beach on a sunny summer evening, you had mentioned that the hope was that odor would be substantially less, it'll never go away.
What does that mean?
Well, I mean, it's pervasive now. It sounds like it may be better, but you're going to have more than twice as many birds.
Right.
So,
How do you measure manure or
2.7.
odor right now? You must have some sort of readings that come out of your buildings or whatever the source is. And what do you anticipate that your readings will be in the future?
We don't have any current technology in our buildings because of the age, as far as what the manure reading is. We have standards that we have to meet with animal welfare. We measure ammonia in the buildings, things like that, and we don't even register.
So there's no way to take readings from the exhaust fans or anything like
The
that?
best thing is right here, probably.
yeah.
Well, is that to scale then? So I mean, you're talking 1 million birds, the odor is this level, you go to 2.7 million
No,
birds, so now it can be 2.7
And,
times
you know,
stronger.
It wouldn't be the case because of the change in technology. I mean, remember what I said earlier, that is probably the oldest farm in the country. And I mean in the country. The technology at that farm was upgraded kind of early. Yeah. And even that technology is old now. What has really changed is first the environment. Second, how you can now dry the droppings right at the aviary system. And then the new MDS systems that dry it again. And that's all done inside, you know.
Any examples of something going from an old system to the new proposed and changes in odors, any of that stuff? Do you know?
You know, I'll tell you what, let me see if we can get some answers on that for you. I would hate to stand here and try to guess at something.
Sure.
But I can tell you, you know, the requirements that are used for, say, odor scorings, for example, for siting, okay? And there's a matrix that has to be done on that. The DNR has looked at this new process, and it's already being used at other farms in the country, and they've looked at it, and it's so good at reducing odor that it's taken it from, say, a value of 20 down to a value of 1.
Bring in the neighbors.
So if there's anything proportional to tell you,
Tell us.
the DNR has come up with that. We didn't even come up with that data.
That's a major issue for almost all of them. It's just-
How many
It's that much better.
How many of you people know about the dog food factory? How they process?
How they do, I don't know, but it.
Yeah, you
that's-
see?
Yeah.
They take and get 50-pound box of frozen waste from the slaughterhouses. And they chew that up in the morning and run it across a scooter, which is a big fire, to dry it. Have you ever smelled burnt bodies or anything like that? Sometimes that dog food factory smells worse than that chicken fry.
We have a call into DNR to look into that, okay? I wanted to add, to comment, I wanted to say that I think it's really a good improvement that things are going to be inside in terms of the manure handling, because we know from tracking odors and things like that as our citizens group that a lot of times the odors have to do with when, and for lack of a better terminology, when the chutes that you see along County Road A
Sure.
are empty with the manure, then sometimes that flies around and it gets into the air and then we have
Okay.
odors. So I think that's a really good improvement. I do have a question, and I wasn't sure if this could be a mistake, and I was very concerned about it because I looked at some of the documents that are on the DNR site now, and you know, they very clearly describe the waste storage facility proposed for the new pullet setup and the waste storage facility for the layers. What I saw there, and I just wanted to have you talk about this a little bit, is it says that the waste storage facility shall provide approximately 397 days of storage. However, manure is not planned to be stored longer than 365 days. So is that correct, that that manure will stay in the building a year?
Okay, so here's what we wanted to do. We wanted to have a facility that if we had to keep the product on the site for a whole year, we could.
Okay.
In fact, I was given direction to make sure that we had enough storage for 1 year. Typically, now, that world is changing quite a bit. It used to be that farmers only wanted to put manure on their fields in the fall. That's changing. We're seeing now farmers wanting to take it at many different times of the year, okay? we contract to have all of our manure removed from our site, okay? And they may want to take it at different times of the year. But what if they don't? What if they just want to take it one time in the year? What if their clientele only wants to take it one time of the year? Because the moisture level in this product being down to 20% or less than 20% moisture, you'll be able to walk in that storage building and you probably won't even smell manure. It'll be so dry, okay? But we want to have the ability to contain it for up to a year if we need to. Actually longer, but we're not going to.
So is it possible to kind of aim for 3 times a year for getting that out of there? Because I know that...
In fact, it's funny you should say that. I had a conversation with our VP of operations just the other day, and he said to me, he said, Rick, he said, I want to move it all the time if we can.
Like, that would be ideal, but yeah, I still think at 20%...
It definitely won't hurt, right?
365 days is too long to be in there.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the standard, because that's when farmers like to put it on the field. But like I said, that's changing, and there are more farmers now that will take it at different times of the year when they didn't in the past. We prefer it too, Anita. That would be,
okay.
It'd be to our advantage.
Thank you.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the traffic impact?
Yeah, in fact, I would like to talk about that in a minute, because one of the things that I do want to present to the board is an idea that we would like the board to consider for us, okay? Now, I'm going to start by pointing on this, and then I'll show you a little more detail. So remember I said we're going to put a new feed mill up. Daybreak currently has, I'm just going to hang on for a second. Daybreak currently has, we have one feed mill at this operation, right about here, okay? We have an old feed mill just north of town if you go over the interstate on A, and that feed mill doesn't work as a feed mill anymore, we just use it for grain storage. That's probably as tired or more tired than that one, okay? So to feed this many birds, we need a feed mill, okay? So we decided, originally we were going to try to put the feed mill on this side of the road, close to the layer barn. It just doesn't fit. It conflicts with biosecurity, it creates a real traffic hazard, it would not be a good place to put it. So we decided we have the property across the road, why not put it across the road, okay? But now we're trucking across the road, okay? Now that creates other problems, and we know what agricultural traffic can do. So what we would like to propose, and this is done in many areas, we would like to run an overhead conveyor across Crossman Road over to the layer site. Okay? Now, I'm not dreaming this up. This is done in several areas for different industries. This is Crossman Road, and that's basically what that conveyor would look like. Okay? This was actually done by one of the feed mill contractors that we're talking to as a possible general contractor for a feed mill project. This would be 18 feet in the air, is that right? So it'd be plenty high. You know, the maximum truck can be, I think, is 13.6. So this would be 18 feet. If we need to go higher, we can. Right? The feed mill would be over here. We would convey across the road and go into the feed bins that are in the front of the layer buildings. Okay? Now, just to do a little math for you, if I was to truck that feed across the road, which we can do, but if I was to truck that feed across the road, it'd be about 20 semi-loads a day. Okay? It's just a safety hazard. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I guess it's legal. It's going to beat up the road to the point about traffic. And it's just not a good biosecure thing to do either. Okay? So we would propose that we would put this across the road. It would help us with biosecurity. It would help with vehicle safety. It would obviously make us a little more efficient because we don't have to try to run these trucks all day long. Okay. We've actually asked our engineering company, Bob's group, to look at examples of where this has been done in the past, because I'm sure if the board were amiable to it, they would have to put an ordinance and an agreement together, because there's lots of issues that go with that kind of thing. This would be fully covered on top and bottom, so it wouldn't get wet. We don't want anything on it to get wet anyways. There wouldn't be any spillage because it would have trays and everything underneath that would catch anything that might come off. It would have a catwalk next to it for service. Okay? So we found some examples of these kind of things that have been done in the state of Wisconsin. From that, we took and drafted up a typical type ordinance that could be used for that. And we took the liberty of actually being able to present it to the board as, I'll say, kind of a place to start when it comes to.
You can have this, right?
That's yours. That you could, it's a Word document, by the way. That you could look at, how you could put an agreement together with us. Because obviously we would have responsibility and liability, but we would be asking for it because what it can do not only for the site, but reducing by a vast amount the amount of traffic and other safety issues that would be between those two sites. So, like I said, this is done quite frequently, and it would be a good option. It would help us. It's not 100% needed, about 82%.
So what's the total
And that's
distance?
right about here, by the way.
How long
What's the
is-
total distance of the conveyor belt?
Yeah, that's a great question. Do you know what it is from about here to here? I'm gonna say probably 600 feet, if I had to guess.
I was gonna say 5.
5? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that would come off of if you know feed mills, it would come off of a leg in the feed mill, be transferred across, and then this conveyor would continue right down in front of the buildings and just drop feed into each one of those things. And just replace trucks driving across the road all day long.
Okay, what about getting the wastewater from the current site to the,
Thank you. So what we would be proposing is that whatever right-of-way agreement that we would come up with you for the overhead, we would also then include an underground right-of-way. And what we would typically do is put a sleeve under the road, and it would be, I'm talking deep, probably 5-6 feet deep. Okay. Where then in that sleeve, we would put a pipeline and what's called a force main. That force main might be anywhere from 6 to 8 inch force main, I'm guessing right now. And it would come from the plant, it would be pumped across over onto to our property on the other side, and then that line would continue all the way over here to the lagoon system.
Would it be below grade the entire way?
Yes.
yes,
Yes, it would.
would have to be frost-proof.
Yeah. And quite honestly, that type of thing is done quite frequently. The overhead thing is not, it's not as much. But, the underground ones are not unusual at all.
So the odor impact of the wastewater, the waste pond there, that would actually be increased, is that correct?
Well, Keith, I'm going to let you speak to that.
I would say no, we wouldn't see any change there, because all of that's taken into consideration with the design of what we currently have.
Yeah. What's happening here,
Expand on that?
we're not just adding more water to what's already there. We're actually changing the functionality of these cells.
Currently, the first cell's a anaerobic digester, the second cell's an aeration pond, and the current, this one here is just a holding pond.
Okay.
We're gonna take this second cell and make it an anaerobic as well.
Okay.
And then this large cell here is gonna have that's gonna be all aeration. So it'll be aerated according to the volume
Okay.
that's coming out of the anaerobic before it goes into the final holding cell.
And the holding cell, what actually ends up there? Once you're
Water.
done?
What do you mean?
Well, once you've aerated it and digested it, and it's basically a wastewater treatment
Correct.
system. And so what comes out is, what's the purity of that? What's the,
It's pretty clean, actually. Yeah.
That water then goes where?
We land apply it.
Yeah, it means
We're underneath our
WPDS
WPDS permit. We land apply it, mostly on alfalfa fields.
okay.
Yep.
Which is what we do now.
Rick? What I was really asking was, thanks for showing us about the conveyor and stuff, but what I was asking was, the facility's gonna be bigger, so the traffic impact of bringing in goods and taking goods out, there's already a pretty big traffic impact on the intersection, and around the intersection of A and Crossman.
Sure, right here.
So, that's, what's the study on that? Because, it's already to the point where, there's a lot of traffic. So definitely be more.
Well, I can't deny that the traffic will increase. Will it double? I don't think it'll double, but it will go up. I mean, there's already truck traffic on A and on Crossman Road.
Right.
You know, it's just it's part of farming, it's part of business, it's part of travel.
Well, I'll get to the root of my question.
Sure.
Those trucks, when they come down and turn on Crossman to go to the facility, they lay into their air brakes every single time.
Oh,
And that's a noise problem. And so,
like their juice brakes and that kind of thing? Gotcha.
And so this, when you're coming out from Lake Mills, and you go through the S's, it's a 35, 25, then it's 45. And then, they pick up speed all the way up that road, all the way till they get like,
Someone will look at you guys have done it. Okay.
an inch or two from that road and hit the Jake brake and make the turn.
Well,
And that's a problem.
I travel quite a bit, and I'm sure many of you have seen, like they say, no Jake brakes or no, I forget what they call them.
Engine braking.
Engine brakes, thank you, exactly. And, we could probably work something, maybe an ordinance is passed that we put signage out there that you can't use engine brakes.
That'd be great.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, and there's homes out there that don't need to hear the, that happens when they hit those things.
Right.
No.
And I mean, once or twice a day, or, even, but over and over.
No, over and over. It's
Anything like that is
looking at
irritating.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Were there other questions?
What's your plans to the east 40 of the new site?
Really, the
Nelson
only
property.
thing that'll happen here, we are gonna make some, okay, so remember the NOI that I talked about, the notice of intent? And that has to do with water control on the site? Okay, so because not all of this is permeable surfaces, we have to control that water. There will be an area down here that will be like a water retention area that will just naturally drain. Okay, and we don't really show it on this drawing, but it'll be right about in here. Is that about right, Bob? That's it, right here. Okay. That's the only thing that we're doing there. We actually are trying to make it a point, and actually, I'm going to say a gentleman's agreement, that we don't want to do anything with this. It's a great hunting ground. It's a great natural area. There's a wetland area right in here, and it's about, 12 feet deep, I think, Bob, is what we figured. And it's just a really nice area. We don't want to touch that. I mean, for a minute, and that's about all it was. We talked about, should we put our feed mill back here? No, we didn't want to.
Hey,
We don't want to disturb it.
I think that little area east of that east of the wood patch there, that's farmland still.
Yeah, right. Well, and right now, this is a bean field, and is this beans? I'll say it was, yeah.
Well, that's good, that's good.
And there's a homestead right here.
Yeah.
There's one back here, right? And you said this is yours right here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But by east that proposed area, they recropped for all these years. They raised corn, soybeans on there, that's probably like 40, 50 acres.
Yeah, that's probably right, yeah.
How big is that retention pond you're proposing?
This one right here. Do you know how big that is?
Not big. I'm guessing about 4 or 5 acres.
And it's a step down pond.
Yeah.
It'll just be natural grass. Okay. And with natural drainage. One thing is nice here, there is some real nice natural drainage. So stormwater runoff is pretty easy to control in that area because there's some sandy soils. So it works out nicely for that.
Just so I'm clear on that, the property on the existing side of the road, this dog food manufacturing place, whatever,
Yeah.
the Creekside doesn't own that property, they don't, that's property owned by somebody
That
else.
is a completely separate entity. Yeah, I think it's owned by a company out of Michigan.
Yeah, it's Randy Weissong, it's National Food Products, NFP.
NFP. Yeah. Yeah, it's just a separate business.
And then,
Well, I guess I want to thank you. I know it's a late night, and actually my
Night, this is normal.
Your question again?
Are they drilling a new well?
Are you drilling a new well?
my wife is flying in tonight, And at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, we're driving down to Lawton, Oklahoma. I've got a son that's graduating from basic training in the Army on Thursday. And so I've got a long trip ahead of me tomorrow, 12.5 hours, I think, to set out MapQuest. But we were talking about this earlier. If this room was 3 times as full, I'd be happier. Okay? And why? Because we want you to know what we're doing. Okay? We're not hiding anything. We're going to tell you as much as we can, as quick as we can. The most important thing is accuracy. We don't want to tell you one thing and do another. We're not going to do that. Right? We will keep you abreast as often as we can as we go through this project. I'm even toying with the idea of seeing if my company will let us put up a small website so that you can be updated in our progress. I don't know if I'll get that cleared.
These are not on your website right now, these plans and stuff. They're not on your website?
No, they're not. Our website is very generic. It's just for corn pricing and things like that. Yeah.
Somebody asked about, are you doing a new well?
Mr. Crossman asked a question about a well.
About wells? Okay, our wells?
Yeah, you're gonna drill a new one?
Okay, so I'm going to let you guys speak to that because you know what we have and what we're going to do.
Yeah, we're gonna be drilling 4 new ones to supply the water for the layers here, and then we're gonna drill 3 over here. We're gonna abandon 4, 3,
5 altogether.
5 altogether. 5 current ones that we're using, we'll abandon 5.
Those older ones are just not in a good spot, they're old construction, not good, so we're just getting rid of them and we're gonna start over with new wells.
Say, by the way, someone asked earlier about the house and barn and the red barn that's there and that kind of thing. I do just want to comment about that because we kind of fell in love with that property because of that barn. And that's located right here. And we're going to keep that barn. It's the quintessential Wisconsin dairy barn. I mean, it's a beautiful barn. Right now it's used for storage. And so we see that that barn will definitely stay. We may actually remodel it or something, we haven't decided yet, but that will stay there. The home on the property probably won't, because we just want, it's not where somebody would want to live right there, and we kind of need that property for some other things. But without a doubt, that's why we leave it on there, because the barn will definitely stay. It's gorgeous.
Can you talk about the noise that the fan and exhaust systems are going to create?
Yeah, I sure can. So that's the beauty of this. The way we have laid this out, and because, now, I use the word tunnel ventilation, and that means the air is going to flow straight through the house, all the way down the house. And the fans for those are back here. And it really doesn't show it on this plan, but there actually is more structure back there, and that's going to contain the noise from those fans, and it will contain the dust from those fans. And that's literally what it's designed to do. So it's going to be a very quiet farm.
Does it turn it
You won't
upwards?
hear- It's not going to have, like on our existing one, you see fans all the way down the side of the building. This isn't going to have any of that. There's no other fans except at the back. And then it's contained within structure.
Rick,
It's quite a design, actually. I'm sorry.
if you're going to have more of these public information sessions, question and answer things, how would we find out about this? Where would you be posting those?
So I would say, some of them will happen through the process, whether it's through, there will be public hearings and that kind of thing that will come up through the process. There will be meetings with the county in their siting process that everyone can attend, I'm sure. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And if we want to do another one of these, and I think we should, and maybe we need a bigger room or we could do it earlier, but we'd be happy to disseminate more information as we have it, and we just need to communicate with your group to make sure we can do it. I mean, you guys live here, okay? The county spreads out a little more, the state spreads out a little more, but at the end of the day, it's us. It's us. So we want to do right by you, and I mean that sincerely.
Rick, are you the head of the project?
I'm the project manager, yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I think that's enough for tonight, Rick, don't you? Well, I appreciate the fact that you you have come with all of the details. I know that this has been a time crunch for you. Appreciate you doing that. I appreciate the conversations I've had with your engineering firm. I appreciate the input of the public because, after all, as Rick said, this is our township and this is what we're here to do. I guess what would be, and I'll say this a million times to everyone who comes to us, what I'd really like to know is the timeline, because what's most important, and you know that, is that everyone is informed, so that if you're having a public hearing, or we're having a discussion, or we're having a discussion at the town board level or the county level, it would be really nice if we had a timeline to kind of say where we're going. And the same with the construction and the post-construction. All of those things need to be kind of put together on a timeline so that we're all on the same page when it comes to rushing around and getting things done.
Well, and that we've had problems with that in the past because we only meet once a month.
Okay.
And we have to post things ahead of time, so that's part of it.
Now, I think you've all been very patient and you've also been very, very well behaved. I didn't have to bang anything around, correct? So I appreciate what you guys have done tonight. This is a big pill for the town of Lake Mills to swallow. I appreciate what you've done and the examples that you provided. That will be very helpful to us, and I know that you are available to us in the meantime. So the rest of you, go home, think about this, put your questions together. This is a board that works with you, not against you, and we'll go forward from here. Thank you. Safe travels.
Don't bitch about the farmer when you got a mouthful of food.
There you go.